Hi, I'm Tim of Gothberg, and welcome to our showcase of the 2019 Glashutte Original SeaQ Panorama date. This timepiece features many configurations, including both blue and black dials and several different bands, ranging from leather to rubber to textile to a full factory bracelet. This is the factory vulcanized rubber strap. Now, the watch is inspired by the 1969 Spezmatic RPTS 200 dive watch, but the standard SeaQ is more thoroughly driven by the image of the original. This is a fusion of past, present, with an eye to the future. It's a contemporary 21st century dive watch in size and specification. 43.2 millimeters in diameter, the stainless steel watch is 15.9 millimeters thick, and as I measure it from lug to lug, 51.3 millimeters. However, the shape of the watch mitigates against fit problems, as there is a lovely arcing camber, so the watch arcs around to the end of the wrist rather than flaring out stridently as some large timepieces will. There's a 21 millimeter spacing between the lugs, which means the watch has a nice broad, modern, proportional stance, and the strap that's fitted is of a very high quality. As you can see, it features a little bit of a chevron pattern on the underside to better grip and hold the wrist, as well as to raise it above the wrist and allow ventilation. You'll appreciate that there is a full range of motion, as the strap is not constrained against the flank of the case, and the strap is thick, a massive gauge, as you can see, entirely resistant to shearing or tearing. Surprisingly, Glashutte Original has equipped a twin-trigger, double-deploying clasp, unexpectedly rich and deluxe for a dive-style watch. This prevents accidental droppage while donning or removing, especially if you may be in marine environments where droppage has significant consequences up to and including loss. They have thought of everything. Now, some of the vintage cues come through in the case band, which is narrow, the slender profile very much evocative of the late 60s, and the use of a vertical rather than longitudinal satin finish, unusual but true to history. The lugs are minimally beveled and squared off on their ends, as the original would have been, and there's a lovely polished bevel that runs the full length of the case band for contrast. Turn it all over, you can see polish between the lugs and a set of minimalist but functional shear guards for the crown. And note, this model includes a bespoke crown with the Glashutte Original logo, as well as a little bit of a flanking wave motif. The knurling for the bezel is deep, sharp, and polished on its outer face, and if we roll around to the dial side, you can see that there is a ceramic inlay to better resist scratching and scuffing. Now, the bezel action is excellent. Have a listen. I'll hold it up to the mic so you can hear it more distinctly, and simply refined, sharp, but at the same time chunky and mechanical. It's a pleasing feel. A bezel can make or break a dive watch. This one makes the machine. Line up the luminescent index with the broad arrow style vintage inspired minute hand, and you have an impromptu 0 to 60 minute timer. I find dive bezels to be more practical than chronographs because they're easier to read at a glance, and most chronographs only feature a 30-minute register, whereas here you get 60 minutes. Advantage dive watch. The dial is a sunburst galvanized black, and although it's difficult to tell from a distance, it does have a distinct metallic tinge in person. The dial is made by Glashutte Original's manufacturer in Pforzheim. They build their own dials, and you can see elements of vintage inspiration, including the font used. I love the exquisite open 6 down at the base of the dial, and the broad arrow style minute. There is a counterweighted Glashutte Original logo on a fully loomed seconds hand, and all dive watches should feature loomed seconds hand. It's a high-grade dial. All of the numerals and indices are applique, not printed, and there is the brand signature Panorama datum, or outsized double-digit date, down at 4 o'clock on the dial, and you will note I have strategically set the 4th. Now, it is a double-digit date, so if you haven't seen the Panorama datum before, this might be new to you. You have the ability to quick set it, and the digits move independently, so you can rapidly correct should the watch encounter an irregular length month. There's also a hacking or stop seconds function, so you can precisely synchronize the watch to a reference time. Of course, the watch water resistant to 300 meters, or approximately 1,000 feet. You will note that there is a stepped aperture for the date and monotone black discs, so there is a transitional visual drop from the dial to the discs. It's not a sheer cut in the dial, and then the monotone discs ensure that the date's there when you want it, but it's not obtrusive when you don't. Turn the watch over and you can see a display case back, and Glashutte Original, manufacture caliber 3613. The 3613 was launched as the 36 back at Basel World 2016 on the Senator Excellence Chronometer series, and this shares many of those refinements. There is a 28.8 beat rate, or 4 Hz, a modern high beat rate, the same 100-hour automatic winding power reserve, the same inaugural use of a silicone hairspring in a Glashutte Original watch, and of course adjusted in 6 positions, one more than a standard chronometer, just like the Senator Excellence. And while this model is not chronometer certified, I would not bet against it meeting chronometer timing standards. The watch is handsomely hand-finished. As you can see, black polish of screws as well as the swan's neck regulator over the balance. There is a unique double spiral laid down by hand on the reduction wheel of the winding system. Black polish on the center of the rotor. There's a skeletonized rotor with a 21-karat gold mass held by black polished screws, and you can see satination of the wheels of the train as well as the wheels above leading to the barrel. And from the barrel, you can see that the movement features Glashutte stripes across both rotor and bridges. Handsomely executed, this 41 jewel manufacture movement completes the package, making this vintage-inspired timepiece very much of the 21st century. You can see and learn more on our website, gavbergwatches.com. Glashutte Original SeaQ Panorama date by night. This is the black dial. Let's call it the black and blue dial after dark.